This isn't a joke. I shrugged. It's a farm. Karen, or Linda, as she called herself, crossed her arms. Well, your irrigation system needs to be adjusted. I'll take a look, I said casually. She shook her head. No, it needs to be fixed immediately. That was the first time she used that tone. The kind that assumes authority, the kind that expects compliance. And normally, I might have just ignored it. But something about the way she said it made me pay attention. I'll check the system, I repeated. That's not good enough, she said. You're affecting HOA properties. I looked at her. I'm not in your HOA. She paused, then gave a tight smile. That doesn't matter when your actions impact our community. I nodded slowly. Actually, it does matter. She didn't like that answer. Over the next few days, I adjusted a few irrigation lines just to be reasonable, reduced some overflow near the boundary, made sure nothing unnecessary was spilling toward the neighborhood. Problem solved. Or at least, it should have been. But a week later, another letter showed up. And this time, it wasn't a conversation. It was a formal notice from the HOA. Violation notice, water runoff impacting HOA property values. There was even a fine attached, $150. I stared at the paper for a long moment. Then I laughed, because now, this wasn't about irrigation anymore. That afternoon, I drove over to the HOA office, small building near the entrance of Silver Creek Estates. Inside, Karen was sitting behind a desk like she had been waiting. You received the notice? She asked. Oh yeah, I said, and I think you made a mistake. She leaned back. No mistake. You fined me for water usage, on my land. You're impacting HOA properties. I shook my head. You don't have authority here. Karen smiled slightly. You'd be surprised what authority we have. That sentence told me everything, because people who actually understand their limits don't talk like that. I reached into my truck and grabbed a folder. Inside were the documents the previous owner had given me: contracts, maps, water system diagrams. I placed them on her desk. You might want to read these. She glanced down at the papers, then back at me. What is this? I smiled. This is where your water comes from. Karen frowned. We get water from the municipal system. I shook my head. No. Then I tapped the document. You get it from me. For a moment, she didn't react. Then she picked up the papers and started flipping through them. And slowly, her expression changed. Because right there in black and white was a contract signed years ago between the developer of Silver Creek Estates and the original landowner. A contract that clearly stated the HOA's entire water supply for irrigation and backup systems was sourced from the spring reservoir on my land. Karen looked up at me. That doesn't give you the right to cause issues, I smiled slightly. No, but it does mean something very important. She narrowed her eyes. What? I leaned forward just a little. It means before you try to find me again, you might want to think about where your water comes from. Karen's expression hardened. Are you threatening the HOA? I stood up. No. Then I turned toward the door. I'm just suggesting you don't push problems you don't understand. But as I walked out of that office, I had a feeling she was going to do exactly that. And the next time she showed up on my land, she wasn't asking anymore. She was ordering. And that's when everything changed. The second notice came 3 days later. This time, it wasn't just a fine, it was a warning. Final notice. Failure to comply will result in legal action. I read it once, then again, and this time, I didn't laugh. Because now it was clear. Karen wasn't backing down. She didn't care about the documents I showed her. She didn't care about the contract. And she definitely didn't understand the situation she was walking into. That afternoon, I walked out to the water control station again, lifted the metal cover, and looked down at the system. Pipes, valves, pressure gauges, everything running smoothly. Water from the natural spring flowed steadily through the main lines. One branch fed my fields, another ran underground straight towards Silver Creek Estates. I could shut it off, right there. One valve. That's all it would take. But I didn't. Not yet. Because I wanted to give them one more chance to realize what they were doing. That evening, a black SUV pulled up near my gate. Karen stepped out, but this time, she wasn't alone. 2 other people followed her, a man in a suit and another holding a clipboard. I walked over slowly. "Big meeting?" I asked. Karen didn't smile. "This is Mr. Reynolds," she said, pointing to the man in the suit. "Our HOA legal advisor?" Of course it was. The man stepped forward and extended a hand. "Sir, we'd like to resolve this situation professionally." I shook his hand. "Then you should probably start by canceling the fines." Karen immediately cut in. "That's not happening." The lawyer gave her a quick look, then turned back to me. "Our concern is the impact your water system is having on HOA properties." I nodded. "And my concern is the HOA trying to control land it doesn't own." He paused, then said carefully, "According to our understanding, your irrigation practices are causing runoff issues." I folded my arms, and according to my understanding, I pointed toward the ground beneath us. "Your entire neighborhood depends on water from this property." The man with the clipboard shifted uncomfortably. The lawyer glanced at Karen. Karen didn't say anything. Because she knew. She had read the contract, but instead of backing off, she had doubled down. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Even if that's the case, you are still responsible for ensuring your operations do not negatively affect adjacent properties." "That's fair," I said, "and I've already adjusted the system." Karen snapped, "Not enough." I looked at her. "What exactly do you want?" She didn't hesitate. "Shut the system down until it meets HOA standards." For a moment, everything went quiet. Even the wind seemed to pause across the fields. "Say that again," I said. "I said," she repeated, slower this time, "turn off the water system." The lawyer shifted slightly. "Perhaps a temporary adjustment?" Karen cut him off. "No, it needs to be shut down." I stared at her, and that's when I realized something. She still didn't understand. Not even now. Not even after seeing the contract. "You don't get to decide that," I said calmly. Her chin lifted. "As HOA president, I absolutely do." I nodded slowly. "All right." Then I turned and started walking back toward the water control station. Behind me, I heard the lawyer say quietly, "Wait, let's talk this through." But Karen's voice came louder. "Yes, go ahead. Turn it off." I stopped at the metal cover, looked down at it, then back at them. "You're sure about this?" Karen crossed her arms. "Absolutely." I opened the cover. The metal creaked as it lifted. Inside, the system hummed quietly. Water flowing, pressure steady, everything working exactly as it should. I reached down and grabbed the main valve. And then I looked back at Karen one last time. This shuts off everything," I said. "Your irrigation, your backup water, every line running into Silver Creek." Karen didn't flinch. "Do it." So I did. The valve turned with a heavy metallic resistance. Then, with a deep, hollow sound, it locked into place. And just like that, the water stopped. At first, nothing happened. Everything looked the same. The fields, the houses in the distance, the quiet road between us. Then the man with the clipboard checked something. His eyes widened. Pressure just dropped. The lawyer pulled out his phone. "What does that mean?" "It means," the man hesitated, "the HOA system isn't receiving water anymore." Karen frowned. "That's temporary." I leaned against the fence. "Sure." About 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Then another, then another. I didn't need to answer, because I already knew what was happening. Sprinkler systems inside Silver Creek had stopped. Water pressure in backup lines was dropping, and residents were starting to notice. Karen's phone rang next. She answered quickly. "Yes?" Pause. "What do you mean, no water?" And she turned away slightly, listening. Her expression changed. Confusion, then concern. "Check the system," she said. Another pause, then louder. "Check it again." And she hung up slowly, and for the first time since I met her, she looked unsure. "What did they say?" the lawyer asked. Karen didn't answer right away. Then finally, "They're saying the neighborhood irrigation system is offline." I nodded. "Yeah." The lawyer looked at me. "You shut down the entire supply?" "You told me to." Karen shook her head. "This is unacceptable." "No," I said calmly. "What's unacceptable is ordering someone to shut down something you don't understand." In the distance, we could already see it. Sprinkler systems across Silver Creek, silent, lawns drying, residents stepping outside, confused. And the worst part? This was just the beginning. Because what Karen still didn't realize was that irrigation wasn't the only thing connected to that system. And within the next few hours, the entire neighborhood was going to learn exactly how dependent they were on water they didn't control. For the first 30 minutes, Silver Creek didn't panic. Most people thought it was just a temporary issue, a glitch, a maintenance delay, something the HOA would handle. But by the 1-hour mark, things started to change. Sprinkler systems across the neighborhood stayed silent. Lawns that were usually bright green under constant irrigation sat dry under the afternoon sun. And then came the second problem. Inside several homes, water pressure started dropping. Just not completely gone, but weaker, unstable, inconsistent. Because the system feeding Silver Creek wasn't just for irrigation, it also supported backup water pressure lines tied into the development, something most residents didn't even know existed. And now, those systems were running dry. And Karen's phone didn't stop ringing. Every few seconds, another call, another complaint, another confused homeowner asking the same question. What's going on with the water? She stepped away from us, pacing near her SUV. I don't care what they're saying. Fix it, she snapped into the phone. But there was nothing to fix. Because the source wasn't inside the neighborhood. It was standing 50 feet away, leaning against a fence, watching everything unfold. So the lawyer walked over to me again. This time, his tone was very different, calmer, careful. We need to resolve this quickly. I agree, I said. Then restore the water. I shook my head. Not until we fix the real problem. Behind him, Karen was still arguing on the phone, her voice sharper now, more desperate, because she was starting to realize something important. This wasn't a small system she could control. This wasn't an HOA violation she could fine. This was infrastructure, real infrastructure, and she had just told the person controlling it to shut it down. Within another 30 minutes, cars began pulling up near my property. Residents, lots of them. Some looked confused, others looked frustrated, a few looked genuinely worried. One man stepped forward. Are you the owner of the farm? Yes. Do you control the water supply? Yes. He exhaled slowly. Our system just went offline. I know. He glanced back at the neighborhood. Can you turn it back on? Before I could answer, Karen walked over quickly. He will, she said. I looked at her. No, I won't. The crowd went quiet. Karen's expression snapped back into anger. You don't have a choice. I almost smiled. That's where you're wrong. The lawyer stepped in quickly. Let's keep this constructive. He turned to me. What do you need to restore service? Now we were finally having the right conversation. I looked at the group. Residents, board members, Karen. First, I said, every fine the HOA issued against me gets canceled. The treasurer, who had just arrived, nodded immediately. That's fair. Karen didn't speak, but she didn't argue either. Second, I continued, the HOA formally acknowledges that this water system is on private land and outside their authority. More nods, more agreement. The lawyer looked relieved. That's reasonable. I paused, then added one more thing. And third, everyone waited. The HOA signs a formal agreement for water usage. Karen frowned. What kind of agreement? I met her eyes, the kind where you don't try to control something you don't own. Silence. Because everyone understood what that meant. This wasn't just about turning the water back on. This was about fixing the mistake Karen had made. The treasurer stepped forward. We can do that. The vice president nodded. Absolutely. Karen finally spoke. You can't just give in to demands like this. The treasurer turned toward her. We're not giving in. He gestured toward the neighborhood. We're fixing a problem. The residents murmured in agreement, because now they were the ones affected. Not just Karen, not just the HOA board, everyone. And Karen looked around, and for the second time in this situation, she realized something. She wasn't in control anymore. The lawyer spoke quietly. I recommend we move forward with the agreement. Karen didn't respond. That was enough. Now the treasurer turned back to me. Give us 1 hour. I nodded. The group left quickly, cars pulling away, phones ringing, voices raised in urgent conversations. And for the first time since I turned that valve, things got quiet again. 1 hour later, they came back. Documents in hand, signatures ready. The agreement was simple, clear, and very different from before. The HOA acknowledged the water system was privately owned. They had no authority over it. Any future issues would be handled through proper communication, and most importantly, they would pay for water usage and maintenance going forward. I read through everything carefully, then signed. After that, I walked back to the control station. Karen stood a few feet away, silent, watching. I opened the metal cover again, reached down, and slowly turned the valve. The system came back to life. A deep rush of water moved through the pipes. Pressure returned, flow stabilized. Within minutes, you could hear it across the valley. Sprinklers kicking back on, systems restarting, life returning to Silver Creek Estates. Behind me, one of the residents let out a relieved laugh. Water's back. People started smiling, talking, relaxing. Crisis over. But something had changed. The HOA board didn't stand tall anymore. They stood quietly, listening, learning. And Karen? She didn't say a word. Over the next week, the story spread through the entire neighborhood about the fines, the shutdown, the water. And by the end of that week, Silver Creek Estates held a special meeting. Karen didn't last long after that. A new HOA president took over. Someone calmer, someone who understood boundaries. And as for me, I kept the farm running, the water flowing, and the system working exactly the way it was meant to. But one thing never happened again. Nobody from that HOA ever tried to tell me what to do on my own land. Because sometimes the biggest lesson an HOA can learn is realizing exactly where their power ends. And sometimes that lesson starts the moment someone says, "Turn it off." How did you like the story? Please comment and like, subscribe, and share my YouTube channel for more interesting HOA stories.